Hey, so we are up to scene 3, and look who's back, the witches. Now, we know from the first scene that they said they were going to meet Macbeth. And that's what's going to come up in this scene, but they're having a little discussion beforehand. So the first witch says, you can look at them. They literally are just talking to each other. So the first one is like, "Where hast thou been, sister?" And the second one says, "Killing swine." And the third one says, "Sister, where thou?" And the first witch goes back and tells this story. And I'm going to go through the story quickly and then just give you the significance of it. The first witch tells a story that a sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap and munched and munched and munched. "Give me," quoth I, "a Ronthi," which the rump-fed Runyon cries. "Her husband to Aleppo's gone, master of the tiger, but in a sieve I'll fizz her sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do. So this is what she was saying. She was literally just telling a story that she ran into this woman who was eating some nuts, and she asked her for some. And the woman said, "Get out of here." So she said, "Oh, I'll fix you. This woman's husband is a sailor." And she said, "Oh, I'll fix her." And she was going to shred the sail of the husband. And what seems like this completely unrelated and ridiculous story, the idea here is something that comes up in the future, and it's that the husband will suffer for something that the wife did. And so that's what comes up here. Okay? And then they join in and talk about how they'll help, they'll blow him around while he's out there. Anyway, all of a sudden, there is a drum, and Macbeth and Banquo start coming, and they say, a drum, Macbeth doth come, and the weird sisters hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to thine, thrice to mine, thrice again to make up 9, pieced to charms wound up. Okay, so now what we've got here is, this is going to be Macbeth, okay, and he's going to be with his good friend and co-thane that were just fighting together, Banquo, all right? And they're literally strolling back from the battle. And Macbeth makes the comment, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen," which is interesting. He's just commenting on the day in general. And it's obviously a very clear fair as foul type of situation. And he's saying it was a fair and foul day. It's fair they won, but foul there was a war. By the way, it also usually they have the weather. It's kind of nasty, and it's literally a foul day out. Now, what you're going to notice about Banquo is they have, as similar as they look, they have very different personalities. Macbeth is very quiet. He's often lost deep in thought. There's a word that comes up, it's rapt, R-A-P-T, and it means lost in thought, and it's actually used a few times to describe him. Banquo, on the other hand, is very talkative. It's like every little thought that comes into his head, he's always saying. So that's all Macbeth said, and Banquo now says, "How far is it to Forres?" He's literally asking, how far do we have to go? That's where they're going. Forres is where the king's castle is. And he sees the witches, and he says, "What are these? So withered and so wild in their attire, that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it. Live you?" So now he's actually talking to them. "Live you, or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me, by each at once her chappy finger laying upon her skinny lips. You should be woman, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so." So Banquo notices the witches, and if you heard him say this, they're all making a gesture like this because he's talking to them. They're putting their fingers on their lips. Why would they be doing that? Remember who they said they wanted to see? They wanted to see Macbeth. And here's Banquo being all chatty and whatever, and they're like, "Shh, not you." Okay? Finally, he sees them and says, "Speak if you can, what are you?" And the first witch says, "All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis." Now that's Macbeth's title. So the only thing interesting is like, oh, they seem to know him. Macbeth, Thane of Glamis. But then the second witch says, all hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. And the third witch adds, all hail Macbeth, thou shalt be king hereafter. And Macbeth is startled by that. So if you didn't catch that, they called them, this is known as the three greetings from the witches. Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, king hereafter. Again, a very typical question is, when the witches give Macbeth the three greetings, which is the only one that doesn't surprise him? And the only one that doesn't surprise him is the Thane of Glamis. That's who he is. All right? Now, if you remember, we know something that he doesn't know yet. This is some dramatic irony. What do we know is happening to the Thane of Cawdor? We were at the king's palace when he was told that the Thane of Cawdor was a traitor, and that he announced that Cawdor was going to be killed, and what was going to happen with his title, it was going to be given to Macbeth. So we now hear, it's like, oh, that's very interesting. But look at what he says. Actually, he doesn't say anything. He's stunned, and Banquo looks at him and looks at them and says to his friend, good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that sound so fair? He's like, why are you so